Welcome back. Today we are going to talk about the HZsound Heart Mirror Pro. And before we begin, I do want to thank Linsoul for sending me the Heart Mirror Pro. If you look on their website, I think it's about $79.99, so about $80 for the Heart Mirror Pro. A little bit of a jump from the original Heart Mirror, which I think is $49. But you do get a modular cable, which we'll talk about in a minute. So the Heart Mirror Pro does have very much the same shell as the Heart Mirror. Probably a zinc alloy, fingerprint magnet, very beautiful, polished metal shell. Not too heavy, not too light. It's actually a very nice, comfortable shell. This is the non-modular cable that it comes with, which is kind of a very thin SPC-looking cable. And I think this is actually, this is the microphone / music controller version of the cable, and this is the modular cable, which is quite thin as well. It's, I think, a 2-core SPC style. It's quite kind of little thin, very lightweight, and this is the modular connector, which kind of looks like this. So there you go. You get a nice assortment of tips as well. So this is, I think there actually is a foam in there, so a couple silicone, and then there's a foam, and there's actually an extra filter in there, which is useful because my filters weren't applied all that evenly. Let me see if I can see it real quick. I think that one's the good one. This one is less good, so it's kind of slightly off center, but you can fix that on your own since they sent you extra filters. So let's kind of jump right into it. And right here, just looking at the graph, this pretty much tells you a lot and almost everything you need to know about the Heart Mirror Pro. So one, the signature itself, the Heart Mirror Pro is the blue, is very, very similar to many, many other sets. So here we go. This is Alina in the green, and then Zero, Solnut Zero in the red. So 3 flavors of bass and pretty much the same exact upper mids, treble, upper treble. Very, very safe, well-tuned signature. Very, very common. Lots of sets use it, so not all that surprising. And like I said, the only really difference here is the bass level. And if you look at how Heart Mirror Pro in the blue sort of bumped out the mid bass here, that sort of gives you an idea of what that signature is actually going to sound like. How this mid bass is kind of thicker and fuller than the other two, how that's going to intrude right into your mids, affect clarity a little bit, and then rise at 9 or 10 dB like every other set does, and then roll over, and how this bass affects, the masking of the air here, the amount of detail that you hear come through here, the amount of recession in the mids here, that is pretty much what you see on the graph. And pretty much Heart Mirror Pro is going to be at the upper end of all of those side effects of having that much bass. So very fun level of bass, but does have kind of side effects and artifacts that kind of ripple through the whole signature. So there you go on the graph. So as we jump right into it, like I said, the good news on Heart Mirror Pro, lots and lots of, it's a bassy fun set that works with many, many genres. Very safe tuning, kind of very popular in the marketplace. Not really a surprise when you put it in your ears, and it kind of sounds like, as you would expect, it sounds like a lot of other sets. And that's the bad news. You probably already have a bassy fun set, and this is probably going to be a side grade to it. It's a nice set, but if you have any number of sets that have the same signature, this one doesn't really add a whole lot to it, and you probably already have one that sounds very similar to it. Probably just a different flavor of bass level. So bad news 2, not really a set for big stage or imaging fans. Like I said, that bass level, the way it affects everything else in the signature, tends to close in the stage a little bit, and that affects the imaging. So yeah, I think that's sort of the bad news too on that one. Good value. Again, this one is really a tough one. It's $79, and 2 cables doesn't really get you the value. So same driver-ish. It's still a 10mm CNT driver. Maybe it's the same one from Heart Mirror. I don't really know if it's the same exact driver or not. But as far as the bump in price and getting a modular cable, I'm not sure that really equals value. I'm not sure the sound performance actually is the value either. So I kind of struggled with this one as far as justifying the $79. I think, as I said, you can pretty much find sets that are more expensive, slightly more expensive, and sets that are slightly cheaper that perform equally well, just have different flavors of clarity in the mids and bass levels. So do take that into consideration. So the sound, like the graph says, it's kind of this V-shaped, bassy, fun, very likable, very popular balanced sound. This one is just tilted bassy. That's what it sounds like. Better for bassy playlists and genres that work better with a bit more bass. So I'm going to repeat bass like another 50 times probably, but that really is the characteristic on this one. The amount of bass they put into this signature really affected everything, and that's what they call it Heart Mirror Pro, but it's sort of a Heart Mirror Bassy Pro is what I would call it. So the bass, not really a hard slammer at all. It's kind of had that softer, thicker mid bass sound. People who like that fuller bass sound will like it, and those who don't will just hear it as distracting. If you're used to hearing very clean bass at kind of a very natural level, this one is definitely a little elevated, and it will definitely distract you if that's your thing. So it's not really particularly fast or well-defined. It's just kind of soft and thick. It's just a fun level, and it works across many genres. So it's very likable, but as far as quality, it's kind of okay. And definitely source and tip roll to dial it in. It's just kind of a heavier level, so bigger open tips, a source that may be a little brighter. I think those are going to go a long way to cleaning up the mids at least, and maybe not as a slightly bloated version of bass that you get with some tips and sources. So the mids, definitely okay, and the stage doesn't really help here. Like I said, the stage is sort of not all that big, and you close that in a little bit. The mids are kind of recessed a little bit underneath the bass. Not a whole lot of clarity going on there, and so the whole thing, it's not really a recipe for success in the mids. And I think going back to the original Heart Mirror, that was probably a huge thing for the Heart Mirror. And on this one, it's very much a bassy, people who like bassy sets, that this is your thing. This is not a mid-centric, mids people type of set. And I will say, it is a decision point for this set. Do you really pay attention and bounce your head to the bass, or do you focus on the mids and the clarity? That is everything with this tuning, as it leans towards people who prefer more bass and less of a focus on the clarity. If clarity is your thing, detail, resolution, that's not Heart Mirror Pro. This is just kind of a fun bassy set. And like the bass, the mids aren't really particularly detailed or sharply defined. They're just very likable, nothing offensive, no shoutiness, no brightness. But not actually far from natural. It actually sounds quite good, kind of in that blonde natural sound. It's got a very full sound to it. And even in the upper mid, it's not shouty at all. 9 dB, 10 dB at pin gain, that's kind of a great level. So I would say the mids are just kind of okay, and it really depends on what you're looking for in your mids. People who are very focused on mids will probably find some of the other competitive sets at the same price do a little better job at giving you more clarity in the mids. So the treble, like everything else, it sounds relaxed and forgiving, no sharp edges, no fatigue, no big gaps, just an easygoing level. Again, if you're focused on treble and note definition and detail, this isn't the one. This one's just a bit soft, a bit too relaxed. There is some air there, but again, it's just sort of masked by the amount of bass there. So it's really the amount of air, the amount of how the stage sounds a little closed in, all these things are all related to that bass level and how it carries through. So again, this one is sort of has some air there, but it's just sort of masked, and it presents as a smaller stage. So, and then finally getting to stage is just really more of an in-your-head experience and a lack of height. And it's just a little bit small for the price tag. I think $79 is probably at the upper end of what they could charge for this one, and that's probably, for what you get, is probably a bit at the upper end. I think for, especially if you're a stage person and an image person and you're kind of expecting a huge jump from your $20 KZ set, which actually does a quite good stage, this one is going to be slightly disappointing in the stage area. So that's what I got on Heart Mirror Pro. So thank you guys for tuning in, and we'll see you next time.